Paul Pelosi attacker sentenced to 30 years in prison. Evening, ladies and gents, how you doing? I wasn't going to cover this story because it wasn't of great interest to me with all of the rest of the stuff going on around the world in this crazy time we're living through. But one thing set me off yesterday at work and started me ranting about the appalling nature of the legal system, whereby if somebody knocks 10 bells of shite out of you, nothing happens to them. And I've made videos before, many of them, about a narco-tyranny, which is essentially what we're living in now, whereby the state is extremely oppressive when it comes to prosecuting people like you for trifling things like parking tickets or mean tweets or being impolite to somebody, but fail completely when it comes to protecting your civic rights and protecting you from assault and much worse, from genuinely nefarious criminal gangs, hooligans, the mentally ill, and that kind of thing. It's a form of armed dictatorship, right? Which is basically what we're living in, where the state oppressively regulates the citizens' lives, but is unwilling or unable, generally unwilling in this day and age, to enforce fundamental protective laws, i.e. you walk down the street, you get accosted by a crazy hobo, and they do nothing about it. Okay, nothing. And as I've said many times, things have gone so bad over here in the United States that as long as Trump is for it, the people that oppose him are against it. So if he says, maybe we should stop homeless people from beating people up in the streets, they say, no, homeless people are fine. No, don't talk about them. Orange man bad. And this Pelosi story is of interest because better than anything else, it nakedly illustrates the point. If your wives and daughters get battered with a hammer on the way to work, the state will do almost nothing about it. But if Paul Pelosi is marching about in his undercrackers with a strange man in his kitchen and he gets hit once by said strange man, who he clearly must have invited in, right? Because loonies don't get within 50 metres of very famous politicians' houses in the United States unless they're invited. Do you think I could just wander into this guy's kitchen? If you do, give your head a shake. If you don't, well done, you're catching on. And yet he was the victim of a hammer strike while the police were basically watching it. One strike, one stroke of the hammer, and the bloke has been sentenced to 30 years in prison. He will probably never get out. And I'm just going to juxtapose this alongside a couple of famous high-profile incidents over here recently, which were far worse and perpetuated against normal people. And what do you think the results of my thorough research indicate? Well, you already know the answer. It's that if somebody takes a swing for Hillary Clinton, they go to prison for the rest of their life. But if someone knocks all your wife's teeth out with a hammer, it's a slap on the wrist and they're out on bail the same day. Think we should be concerned about it? I do. Okay, so there is a video on this BBC story. I obviously can't show it because this platform doesn't let you have any fun anymore. But it's literally there. I'll put a link in the comments so you can watch it. He's right there. It seems like he's been invited in. And then he spins on his heel there and lamps him once. And the coppers are all over him straight away. And then he goes to jail for the rest of his natural life. Perfectly reasonable. If you didn't hear about the story, the guy was called David DePape and he was convicted of assault and attempted kidnapping after a week-long trial in San Francisco, and he was in hospital after it. A spokesperson for Mrs. Pelosi said the family couldn't be prouder of their pop and his tremendous courage. Yeah, very proud for inviting a strange man in your undercrackers while surrounded by coppers. Amazing courage. If I was surrounded by coppers all the time, 24/7, and they're all armed, by the way. You're not allowed a gun, but they all are. I think I'd be very brave. Yeah, it takes loads of bravery to march around while surrounded by coppers and bodyguards. Tons of it. Now, on to the stories we can compare it to, right? To prove my thesis about a narco-tyranny in action, right? Laws for them, none for you. Safety for the degenerate vermin that run our respective nations, and constant fear of attack and assault for you, because the police are too busy telling people off for bad manners or arresting people for tweeting than they are to enforce the law properly. So the first story I'm going to cover is this one. The Olympian Kim Glass attacked and hit with a metal pipe in downtown LA. She had her face smashed in. You can see the results here in the middle of the day in downtown LA, and it was quite a big story out here at the time.
This homeless man ran up, He had something in his hand he was on the other side of the car in the street. And he just looked at me with some pretty hateful eyes. I do have multiple fractures up here and a small one here.
A violent attack leaving Olympic silver medalist Kim Glass bruised and battered. Glass taking to Instagram to recount the moment she was attacked on Friday in downtown LA.
Yeah, disgraceful behaviour. She gets her face smashed in with an iron bar in the middle of the street. And what happens to the guy who did that? Well, I'll tell you what happened. This guy, Semyon Tesfarian, was taken to jail and he has been sentenced. He was given 8 years, so he'll be out in about 3. Probably already out, right? Good behaviour, let him out. Who cares? Only smashing people's faces in with an iron bar. On to another good one. 29-year-old man with a criminal past arrested in Santa Monica stabbing of 2 German tourists. And this was only on Tuesday of this week. Multiple violent attacks this month in Santa Monica have put locals and visitors on high alert ahead of Memorial Day weekend. Yes, you read that right. Multiple violent attacks this month. The most recent one, this is just the most recent one, obviously you can't even keep count of them these days, happened in a parking structure on 4th Street. The suspect, Larry Sedano, assaulted 3 victims in an unprovoked incident. The 29-year-old is accused of stabbing 2 of them, leaving one in a critical condition. Right, so they'll never get over these injuries. Their life will never be the same again. 2 of the people stabbed were German tourists, and Eyewitness News has learned he was released from jail just 10 days before the stabbing and was on probation for carjacking. He also has a criminal history showing he's got 2 other previous cases, one for elder abuse and another for assault with a deadly weapon. Is it all making sense now? Is it all making sense? How many times have I discussed this? This is what happened a few years before the veterans restored order and created a liberal utopia in Starship Troopers. It got to the point where normal people couldn't even leave the houses because they were constantly being accosted by violent thugs and the state wasn't doing anything about it. So you get total societal collapse. And that's where we're heading. And it's going to be the same in the UK. I'm sure it is now. Every year, hundreds of thousands of hairy, scary men move over, aren't vetted, no background checks, nothing. They batter you, they fold you up and bum you over a park bench, they do whatever they want. They have the wicked way with you and stick their hand down your drawers above a kebab shop and the police don't do anything about it. So it keeps on happening. And this is just more of the same. But if one politician gets a quick bat, 30 years in prison, and he won't get out. He won't get out. He will rot in there for the rest of his life because there's one law for them and there's one law for you. It's a big club, but you aren't in it and neither am I. And obviously the people that run this platform are in it as well, which is why you'll probably never see. My own mother wouldn't see this video looking at the metrics of my last few because the game is rigged and that's about the size of it. Anyway, let me know what you think. If you think I'm just making a mountain out of a molehill, and this guy, he'd only beat up some old people and assaulted a few people with a deadly weapon and done a bit of carjacking, now he's just knifing tourists, it's not that big of a deal. But if a creepy old man with no pants on invites someone into his house, clearly inviting them, because the house is surrounded by coppers and bodyguards, and then the bloke and him have an argument, perhaps about, he was unwilling to carry out some particularly warped sex act or something, and then he clips him, he gets put in jail for the rest of his natural life. This bloke's been stitched up worse than Jamiroquai voodoo shaman guy who went for a police escorted walk around Capitol Hill building and then got sent to jail for 10 years. He's been right stitched up, him. Because looking at that, if he was called Mr. Sedano and he'd merely, battered a few old people and normies and assaulting with deadly weapons and pinching people's cars, but he hadn't done it to a politician, well, he'd be out. He'd be free and easy, wouldn't he? Oh yeah, and I almost forgot the most egregious one of them all. Kate Stanley, beautiful young woman, shot in the face by this guy. There she is. Absolute tragedy. Walking down the street with a father, minding her own business, shot in the head, murdered. And the man got acquitted and released on time served because he was an illegal immigrant and Trump said mean things about him. It's disgraceful, it's heartbreaking, and it gives me a rage boner, the likes of which ye have never seen before. Arr! So, that's just my opinion. Let me know if you think I'm a lunatic. Please tell me why in the comments. I wish I had your optimism, and I will see you all tomorrow. All right, thanks for tuning in. See you later.